Our town is destroyed, and it hurts.
In the eye of the storm, you remain in control. In the middle of the war, you guard my soul. You alone are the anchor when my sails are torn. Your love surrounds me in the eye of the storm.
We prayed a lot, and we just praised God, and we were rescued, so we're very thankful.
I like it raw.
Raw. Ooh, baby, I like it raw.
Ooh, baby, I like it raw.
There's this sense of sadness that they have left behind, some of them, homes that they fear will not be there when they get back. But they realize they made a wise decision by putting their life first and protecting their life, knowing that they can always go back and rebuild.
The shock of the situation, the demographic where most of the flooding is taking place. You have a split demographic of income, and some of the families who lived in these lower quadrants, a lot of federal aid will be pouring into those places. There were fatalities, just so you know.
Police are reporting at least 5 deaths and more than a dozen injuries. And the state has activated 3,000 National Guard and State Guard service members.
But in general, a lot of people lost a lot because of the water. It was more of a water event than anything else. National Guard has been activated for the state of Texas. There will be some help coming from Fort Hood and Fort Polk, Louisiana, and of course, some Arizona individuals out there, Nebraska individuals out there, so on and so forth.
Mayor de Blasio says 120 emergency personnel from New York City are being sent to Texas to help in the aftermath. CBS 2's Allie Bauman is live outside the American Red Cross office in Hell's Kitchen with the details. Allie?
Well, Jessica, dozens of firefighters and police officers specially trained for disasters like this packed their bags for Texas this morning. Now, many should be arriving there within the hour and are planning to stay for about 2 to 3 weeks. But there's no telling what challenges lie ahead. Flooding in Texas so high the water is being measured in feet rather than inches. The damage and danger is so severe that state and federal aid alone aren't enough.
We've been receiving so many offers of help from all of our neighboring states, New Mexico, Oklahoma, and Louisiana, even as far away as Governor Cuomo in New York is providing resources for us.
At the crack of dawn Sunday in Brooklyn, the Urban Search and Rescue New York Task Force prepares to go down to Texas. This team is made up of FDNY and NYPD members specially trained to respond to catastrophic events.
This water is going to continue probably for about 3 more days. I know they're saying up until Friday, but more than likely it'll last for 3 more days. Before the storm hit, the majority of the concern was the water. That's where the concern was, water. And of course it took place, but many people were not ready for that, right? They just weren't ready. And although part of me is deeply saddened by the losses people have, I know it's a process. I know it's a process of losing things, and it kind of recenters people. Even if you look on some of the media outlets, you're going to hear the term, God bless you. People are throwing down their titles and everything else, and they're really coming to aid of each other. Now, one important thing I want to note is that most of the individuals, most of the leadership, they've declared this is a neighbor-to-neighbor helping system.
The images of destruction and dislocation are horrifying, but the massive rescue effort, neighbor helping neighbor, is inspiring.
Because I know that they've learned a lot over the course of years, and evacuations can be more dangerous than usual. I hope you take note of that. this being I know it's a big happening for those in the affected area, but in the scheme of things, it's something small. I can't help but to feel this is also a warning, a wake-up call, if you will. Okay, not like any other disaster or natural disaster. This is a wake-up call. The nature of people, the spirit of people is changing so much through this. And they're really trying to help each other, that's a wonderful part. The sad part is that the loss is entailed. And that once it's over, people are going to be crushed by what they lost. Now I know that it's a transition. Any one of you who's been through that, you know it's a transition. It changes your life.
We have nothing left.
And Amanda Evans is shaken. She was caught in the eye of the storm.
By 1 o'clock, it was terrible. It was so, I was crying. I was on my knees praying that we made it.
Her home gone.
Why didn't you evacuate?
We just didn't have the money.
But at the end of the day, it also refines your life. And you learn not to trust in these earthly provisions and things of that nature. But the one thing you do learn, the most valuable lesson you can learn, is in these catastrophes, there's one thing that you do have that we most often alienate, and that is each other.
2 guys with canoes came and picked me and my 2 kids up, and then we end up over here. There were regular people who had canoes, and then we walked the rest because the water had receded a little bit, and then there was this couple with a baby that came and picked us up because they seen us walking, and then that's how we end up here.
I went to my neighbor's house for safety because I felt like mine was too low. Well, lo and behold, the water we had to be rescued out. The water was waist deep. Okay, and we were rescued by some firefighters, and they brought us over here to Wedgwood, and I'm just happy to be alive. I mean, everything has fallen in place, so I won't complain. And the community, Friendswood, has just wonderful. People have been friendly. We're not wanting for food or water.
Of all things, in all catastrophes, it's not the money and the resources or anything else. It is human-to-human contact, a hand reaching out to help. And that's a beautiful process, a reminder that because in the course of our days, we normally alienate each other. We don't come together. And through every disaster, people tend to come together, finding that missing element. And when all else fails, when rescue attempts fail, when coordination attempts fail, we always end up having each other. One of the most important elements people can have is each other. And it's always proven to be through these. It's a shame that it has to happen through these disasters, because the materialistic world causes us to be enemies with each other. You take away all the material things, and you can finally see your neighbor. And everybody's in more of a pick up your neighbor mode, which is a beautiful thing. And that will only increase. Now, to be sober, to know the whole story. Well, you see love pouring out now, and it may for months. Just like Katrina, after it's over, it will ultimately turn into a burden. People will begin to point fingers. And then you have the separation of humanity again. Somebody's going to find where somebody didn't respond and react.
Joel Osteen, he is one of America's most popular preachers, but faced some fire on social media when his Lakewood church was slow to take in flood victims as the waters rose in Houston. Pastor Osteen, let's get right to the controversy. We did see that post on Sunday from your church saying it was inaccessible, yet so many weighed in showing that didn't seem to be the case. So what went wrong here?
Well, George, first off, the building was inaccessible. The floodwaters went down. I mean, this building flooded in 2001. It had 10 feet of water in the lower bowl, and we put up floodgates, and it kept it from going over. It's only a foot away. But you know, I think, George, the narrative is that we didn't want to take people in, or that we didn't open in time. It's totally not true. We were here for people. We were a shelter. We were taking people as soon as the floodwaters receded when several people came here to take them in. But the city has a shelter 4 miles from here. We work with the city all the time, and when their shelter was totally full, they started bringing people over here. And here we are again today doing it like we did in 2001 when we housed 3,000 people. So I don't know, I think somebody created that narrative that somehow we were high and dry, and none of that is true. This building, it was a safety issue, and we took people in from the very beginning.
You do seem to be up and running now, but any lessons learned from this?
Well, I think there always is, but I think, George, sometimes it's, you know, when somebody's not in this situation where we had nobody in this facility, we were fearing that it would flood. The last thing we would do is put people in it right at the beginning. But yeah, we would probably be, do some things differently, obviously. But my niece was stranded right across the street from this building the first 2 days of the flood or 1 day of the flood on the freeway. So it was a big flood, and it affected all of the people that run this facility as well. But you know what? We've been here 60 years helping people, and we're going to be here long after all this dies down, helping these people as well.
One of the major arguments is going to be, should they have evacuated the area or not? I'm telling you now, it's going to be one of the major arguments, a point of contention, which is going to be sad because everybody's coming together right now. They're starting to see the truth of life, which is your fellow man. Once it's all over, people are going to go back to their lifestyles. They're going to close off again. Hopefully not all, but the majority will. Political conversations will be held, blame will be cast. When everything is said and done, just like Katrina, just like the rest of the natural disasters that normally happen, just like Haiti, just like Chile.
Controversy over whether Houston officials should have called for evacuations before the storm.
And that part is not good, but this within itself was a warning. It was a warning. The southern portions of the U.S. are taking a hit. It's like a message. It really is. We discussed that before. Peace and allies overwhelmed by water, a flood. That's a message. And I wonder who can decipher that. It's a message. Texas within itself basically is equated, that was taken from an older word, and it stands for, it stands in love, but it means allies or friendship, which is being torn to shreds by a water event. It was not the winds. As we discussed, the majority of the issues would not be caused by the wind, but by water. Many people knew this by the modeling. They knew this last week. They were promoting this last week. National Weather Center, they had a dead-on model of the water and the event. So last week they were discussing what areas they should evacuate. They really were doing this last week because they had knowledge of this, but of course that would have been very dangerous, as the mayor likely has stated his opinion.
Hurricane Harvey, yes, but of course Hurricane Harvey isn't going to hit our area directly. We're going to be dealing with the consequences of Hurricane Harvey. Obviously our thoughts and prayers are with those people who are lower down the coast who are getting a direct hit. We are going to have, as we've been saying all along, a major rain event over the next several days. Lots of rain over the entire area for a long time. At this time, I can re-emphasize, there will be no mass evacuations called because while we always say run from water, hide from wind, when we say that we mean storm surge, not rain. So in this case, we'll have a lot of water, but it's not the kind of water that we would ask people to evacuate from.
But the human element, when people come together, it's a beautiful thing. Just remember that happens during a disaster. Now, one sobering point in this too, another sobering point is this. People are not very loving when they're trying to establish their own lives. People are very loving when all material things are stripped from them.
Thousands are leaving their homes and everything behind.
It's all
just materialistic stuff that is always kept in your mind, and it's always going to be there in your mind, so it's good, but I mean, it's just hard.
The stories of dramatic rescues and close calls are seemingly endless. These are residents at the La Vida Bella Assisted Living Facility who waited for help in waist-deep water. This trucker was saved on live TV. This man realized too late exactly why officials are asking people not to drive under any circumstances. Nerves are frayed at many of the city's shelters where neighbors have little else but each other.
They're completely soaked. I mean, I don't even know what to say. They're not my kids, but I tell you what, I love them like they're my own. And I don't know them from Adam.
It shows the underlying character of each individual, right? And that the truth is, they do love their neighbor, but they have too many obstacles in the way. And when the obstacles are taken away, people spring into action, loving their neighbors. It kind of gives you an insight into our process also. Why the Lord would have us stripped of things. Stuff, materialistic things can cause us to be bitter at our neighbor over materialistic things. You take away all the material things, there's no need to be bitter at your neighbor. In the middle of a disaster, humanity comes together. And in those places you can see immigrants, right? Caucasians, everybody is coming together because their object is to help one another. And it's so sad that it only happens during a disaster. It's very sad, which means we have taken the knowledge that we have been given to create materialistic things, and we have utilized that the wrong way. It's just totally wrong. It's almost like everything made is cursed, and it causes people to stumble so much. You take all that away, and then you really begin to see your neighbor. You really begin to see it. But take note, this is a warning. A decision must be made. I don't take that eclipse lightly, and the path it took. Nor do I take any event that hits known places of power. Texas, being the heart of America, stands for something in America. But materialism has totally corrupted what it stands for. Materialism. So in part, this change that you're going to continue to see will be against materialism, which causes us to see our brothers and our sisters differently. Just take heed in your own life. Look at your neighbors and everything else. All the disputes and arguments stem from materialism, protection of material things, all these things. And this is only the beginning, because we still have a problem in the heavens. The WADL readings are off the chart. And I'm telling you now, the average, if we have a snowstorm, do you understand what will happen? The atmosphere is holding too much moisture. It's going to happen that way, and then it's all going to vanish with no moisture. Things will dry up. You know, the jet stream reversed once already during the Dust Bowl. Do you guys know that? The jet stream reversed. Most people are not aware of that. And guess what happened to the East Coast? It became the desert. Do you know that? The jet stream was going the opposite direction. The winds around the earth were reversed.
The rains stopped and the winds came.
We saw this cloud coming in, black dirt. And I'll never forget my grandmother. She said, "You kids run and get together. The end of the world's coming."
It came like a black wall, a tide of destruction that crashed over the broken plains, choking the life out of everything in its path.
All the patterns changed. There was nothing but dust inside of America. You guys know that? So we can see, we're going to see materialism just being torn down slowly but surely. With the water events, they haven't begun yet. I'm telling you the truth. The water events have not begun yet, but they are. And if this is insight, a reminder of what water can do to the coastal cities, well, you best get ready. Those in Canada, certainly in Ontario, Saskatchewan, Alberta, and Colombia, get yourselves prepped and ready. While you may think you're immune to water, you're not. You're sitting atop a big cauldron of water. And it will spew up from the earth. So a water event will come. And one of the safest places in America is going to be Nebraska, Kansas, Missouri, and Iowa. Figure that one. Almost dead center. It will not be the Ozarks. That rock formation is vibrating. It's going to begin to give way. I know that people, based upon what they knew back then, they thought they had the answer, but they don't. Those are danger spots. That's why certain underground, do you know they have sub-centers underneath the United States of America where subs can enter into the coasts and end up in Colorado? How many of you know that? Or did you know that? Did you have any idea of that? Some of the subs can end up in Texas. Did you have any idea of that? There are 2 off the coast of Florida. Well, there's a couple more, but 2 is enough. Indiana also has one. Did you know that? Many people don't even know these simple facts. And I'm telling you now, they had to shift some of them because the rock is beginning to destabilize. They even have emergency contingency for Yellowstone. They can actually blow part of that wall, and it will go, ocean water will spew into that place. Oh yes, they did that. If you knew about a super volcano, why wouldn't you have a contingency in case it wanted to blow that you could release that whole valve down into the ocean? Yes, they have a contingency. They'll blow that dirt right out of the way. It will allow water to gush in there, causing a relief point for that magma, which will flow out into the oceans. Did you guys know that? See, sometimes we get caught up in the information of something going to blow up so much. We forget that if they know about it, surely they made a contingency for it because they're going to try and save their own skins. Four or 5 years ago, people heard explosions, big booms and everything else. Those were coming from underground. When you blow tunnels like that, underneath the ground, I mean, deep in the ground, they're going to reverberate. Those sound waves travel straight up into the atmosphere.
Residents say there's something strange happening in the Uptown area and they want answers. On multiple occasions, they've heard a loud boom, some even reporting the sound follows a flash of light. Jade Cunningham joins us now with what people are saying about this noise. Jade?
Well, they say that they don't really know what to think because it is just so bizarre and strange. I spoke with several people who tell me this has been happening since the start of December and nobody has a clue as to what it is or where it's coming from.
It's not birds, nor is it a plane.
This is more like a deeper concussion with a boom.
And it's probably not this.
Leah thinks it's aliens. So
yeah, I was about to say, don't say that.
Maybe a zombie apocalypse happening across the street.
But all laughing aside, people all over Uptown are asking, what is it?
And you can see sky back there. And it happened back there. Like I said, it could have been 5 miles or 1 mile. I'm not sure. It could have been a few blocks over.
For weeks, a loud boom has rattled quiet neighborhoods at night or early in the morning.
It's so loud, it made you come outside to see if something blew up.
The wreckers say they heard it last month.
Probably around 6:30, 7 o'clock, and it sounded like a bomb went off underneath our house, rattled the whole house, scared everybody.
It was the loudest sound I can think of without an actual explosion going off next to your house.
They're not alone. Hundreds have posted at nextdoor.com with questions.
Nobody's heard what the cause was, and we all want to know.
There's a lot of speculation as to what could be causing these booms, maybe a blown transformer, fireworks, or some sort of activity that's taking place along the river. But those who've heard this noise say it's just too powerful to be any of that.
It's very loud. It shook the house.
It felt like it was just over in the air somewhere, like something bursting in the air.
The Sewerage and Water Board says it's not them, and according to our partner Uptown Messenger, the Port of New Orleans says they're not involved either. Now New Orleans police and fire responded to calls, but found nothing.
The good thing is we haven't heard of any injuries or anything like that, so that's good. It's just, I mean, hopefully it's just somebody trying to have fun and scare people.
It's like opening an umbrella of sound. Once it hits the atmosphere, everybody looks up and thinks it's coming from up top. It's not. It's coming from beneath. But you have to get through all the hype to understand it. A lot of people in Arizona, some people in Utah and Nevada, they would hear a type of explosion, all of a sudden dirt would spew out of the ground. Like a 20-second discharge of a lot of dirt and soot and air coming up from the ground. You should know what those are. Those are relief vents. They're underground structures that have been there for a long time. But the water event, well, that makes everybody nervous. Because if you have a water event, underground bases can't survive. Which is why they have them pressurized. Because they know geologic change is what they're going to be fighting. So some of these underground dwellings are just like submarines. Pressurized, their own air systems, ecosystems, and everything else. Nebraska, and some of the fake cornfields out there. So aircraft can go right into the ground, into the upper layers. And those fields are fake. Some of the natural preserves, fake. But they do this because they're going to try to survive. Which is why, as of late, I don't know if you noticed or not, prior to 2009, Texas was very, a lot of stuff was happening in Texas, and then they began to pull the funding from the southern regions of Texas where the oil fields are. Did you notice? And then we had that Gulf disaster with the BP oil spill, and they started pulling it even more. They backed everything up. Now this water has contaminated a lot of oil. How many of you are aware of that? Just totally contaminated. When underground, there's no fuel there, there's no electricity there, there's no water, no sewage. It infiltrated some of the tanks there. They're contaminated. It takes a long time to get those back, to not be contaminated again. Too much pressure, too much water. So they'll end up backing more things out. They already moved half of them out of Louisiana. Going up to Mississippi. Mississippi right now is a protected zone, especially in northern Mississippi, because of Arkansas. Because in Arkansas are very important assets. They will eventually be moved, and you're going to see highway changes and everything else taking place in Arkansas, Missouri, all the way up to Iowa, where it stops. Because they know what's coming. The people don't know what's coming. The ones that are going to suffer. And it's time for us to get up and be who we are. I bet you many of you have an unction. You want to go to Texas right now to just lend a hand, don't you? I bet you many of you do. Because you see your brothers and sisters in distress. That will always happen with Christians. The others are going to hide. You're going to help. Many of you have no doubt had dreams where you're helping people, where the highways are cracked. And you're trying to help them get to safety or something like that. Many of you have probably had dreams like that. Because it's an overwhelming communication going out by the Spirit to the children, to us, that your fellow man is going to need you. But I want to tell you something. All these people who are in this area, they're making statements like they were prepared, but they weren't prepared for the flooding.
I'm just trying to get food and water, anything I can, because, I mean, I didn't suspect this hurricane to be that bad.
They had supplies, they had batteries, they had food, they had water. They were prepared. But it's what they were not prepared for, which is what took them by surprise. You expand that to a macro level of the U.S. We may be prepared for certain things, I'm telling you, but it's what we're not prepared for that will take us. And the only true reliable thing that you'll ever have is the truth of the Spirit of the Lord in one another. So don't let materialism make you turn your back on your sister or your brother. Don't do that. God is raising his people. I'm telling you now that the separation from the wheat and the tare is happening through a multitude of situations. And those you thought would never, ever go to the kingdom, you're going to find out they will. And those you thought for sure would enter into the kingdom of God, they will not. Because even in this small crisis, where people lost material things, and some lost their lives, they're going to begin to argue whose fault it is. They're going to begin to politically debate and argue with somebody. The engineers there should have thought about this. They should have had relief points, pathways for the water, for the bayous. You watch and see. It's going to turn into some sort of silly dispute.
If Houston really gets hit, I mean really gets hit, Ike was a
really
myth.
gets hit. This is the biggest rainfall in the U.S.
This
history.
is not. They did not get a direct hit from a hurricane. Had Ike hit 30 miles further west, the damage and the number of deaths would have been drastically higher. This was a shot across the bow. They didn't get hit with the heavy winds. They got lots of rain, lots of flood. Maybe this time they'll wake up, stop this insensible, savage, wild construction in floodplains and everywhere else. I mean, I've seen it over the past 25 years where we live in Seabrook, between Seabrook and the whole Clear Lake area, not far from the Johnson Space Center, where they just built everywhere. There's concrete everywhere. There is absolutely nowhere for the water to go. So if a real storm hits them, and it will, it'll shut down the American economy.
Jason Campbell, you wish you had zoning in Houston?
Well, zoning is an issue that the city's tried to take up before, and I'm sure we'll definitely be looking at that after Harvey is long and gone. But I would say that while there's certainly probably some parts of Houston that with construction, certain things like that are contributing to the struggle of getting the water out of there, nowhere in the United States has ever seen this much rain. It's never happened before. So we are talking about an unprecedented event. And I think that regardless of where it hit, you would be seeing the same problems.
And then the funding issue comes up. Who's going to take care of this? What city is going to pay for all this? Then they get greedy again. Then you're going to see their true nature come out. For those who are on the scene, hugging each other, truly looking for people who need assistance, those people will not argue. And it's so strange. They're people you've never seen before. They're not rich people doing it either. That's the beautiful part. These folks, you can tell they're not rich. They're okay, but they're not rich. They're not really business folks. I'll put it that way. They're people folks. They're looking out for one another. They're rescuing each other in boats that they have. That's what you're seeing. It's a beautiful thing. But the question is, why did the Lord do this? Why can the world see this? The entire world is seeing this. And if the entire world sees this, and the Lord allowed this to happen to the most powerful nation in the world, and they had no defense of it. Now listen to me, the most powerful nation in the world was sent into a type of panic from water. is the result? What have we learned so far? Bullets can't help you when it comes to a water event. Money can't help you when it comes to a water event. All our inventions, they didn't help. They can't help you because they didn't help, nor can you predict certain things when it comes to water events. The very thing they didn't count on took a toll. With all the technology, with all the resources, we couldn't do a thing. You're beginning to understand. Just like in the Bible, it says the rich will cast their gold and silver in the streets. It will not help them. So then the resources, the materialistic things are not going to help. Christ is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. People whose lives have been instantly destroyed. How are they making it through? They have a hope in one another. It's a hope in love. People coming on the scene. It's helping them to talk to someone who's out there in the rain with them. But they rescued them. People came to the aid of people. That's called recovery. Not technology. People. People walking around, gathering what they can to assist others. That's giving people hope. Because I'm telling you, in the end, we'll have one another. And this is why I can't stand division. I don't like division. I don't like arguments. I don't like those things. I've been in too many situations where at the end of the day, the only thing you'll ever have is one another. And all else will fail. People are carrying people's pets out and everything else. Is a beautiful sign. But why must it take a disaster like this to birth love one to another? And what does it really tell us? It tells us that materialism is killing us. Our fight to keep material things, our fight to keep our way of life and to defend our way of life is killing us. You put that into expand that to this entire nation, and I'm telling you what, you know what's killing this nation? Materialism. You know what's killing this nation? Trying to continue to establish foolish ideologies. That's what's killing us. That's what's kept us in a perpetual war, a hidden war. That's why there's so much divisiveness in this nation. Have you ever seen vipers fight vipers? That's what you see in this nation. Why? Because of materialism. Because the truth is, if all things were lost in America, and everybody lost everything, there's only one way to go, and guess what that way is? Up. But all too often, when you acquire what you want, the next step is you're afraid somebody's going to steal it, alter it, or change it, and so you end up defending it, and you will kill people to keep the stuff. Is it true? And when you see something like this, the Lord is telling us something. He's telling us something. And if we don't take heed, we're not going to be ready for the next one. There will be a next one, and a next one, and a next one, and a next one. But this time, they'll dwarf all of what we've seen before, and they will not be in a predictable way. And we're going to keep ending up back at the same point, having everything torn and stripped away from us so we can actually see each other again and see each other in truth. The truth is, it doesn't matter what you look like. When the cry of your fellow man goes out, and it really goes out, when materialism has been wiped away, and you can no longer defend your material things, you're left with your brothers and your sisters. That's why these tragedies end up so beautiful and back into a tragedy again, because we only think that way when all of our material things are wiped away. Materialism, ladies and gentlemen, is your spiritual fight. Hope you can see that. I we take heed of this, those who can see, I hope you can see. I hope you can hear. Begin to hear people talk, and you're going to see that materialism and ideologies over material things is the greatest divisive weapon amongst humanity. They fight over land. They will kill you for the sake of dirt. How shameful is that? Their entire language and their own lexicon is basically this: what we obtain is ours and no one can take it. That's it. And you open your ears and start hearing everybody, and you're going to notice that many people speak from a materialistic point of view, and they can't help themselves, because what they're doing is they're fighting to keep what they have, and they will kill their fellow man to keep it.
We're not certain it's the Hatfields and the McCoys, but an 80-year-old suspect is in jail tonight. The old man is accused of killing his neighbor, a real estate CEO, in a dispute over their property line. The shooting happened over the weekend in Spotsylvania County. Neighbors tell Argenis Parks the elderly suspect had never been in trouble with the law before.
Two neighbors, two beautiful homes right next to each other. Now one is the scene of a murder. The white home on Youngs Lane belongs to 80-year-old Larry Johnston, now suspected of killing his neighbor, Guy Prudhomme. Prudhomme is a prominent real estate CEO of Columbia Property Capital. Today, even though a light was on and a single car in the garage, no one answered the door today at the suspect's home.
It was crazy the way it was lined with police cars and the crime scene tape.
On Sunday, the sheriff's office says a fight over the property line that had been going on for years finally escalated. Deputies say Johnston shot Prudhomme once in the chest, leaving the 65-year-old lying dead in his own driveway. Puzzling to neighbors because you can see the boundary markers clearly marking the property line.
When they first buy it, they have pins that they put in, so why there was a controversy, I don't know, unless there was mental illness on somebody's part.
For the first time in his life, at 80, Johnston faces a charge, and it's a charge of first-degree murder.
So the Lord wipes it away. And he's going to continue to wipe it away. And it's going to wear people out. Because so long as they continue to fight over dirt and material things that come from dirt, and fail to see their brother, he's going to keep wiping it away. I hope you can see that. I hope you hear it in the mouth of your neighbor. Because that's precisely what many have been doing. Every argument, all fights are based upon materialism. And it's in the spiritual realm. Lord have mercy. If anything in your home causes you to hate somebody, I'm telling you now, you're going to be missing it. Don't condemn the person, because something has grabbed hold of the mindset of humanity, and it takes losing everything to wake them back up again. But it shouldn't take it shouldn't take that. Why does it take that to wake us back up again? But according to prophecy, that's the way it's going to happen. So be it. If that's what it takes, then let the souls of humanity be saved, and troubled times will come. God bless each of you.
When my hopes and dreams are far from me and I'm running out of faith, I see the future I picture slowly fade away. And when the tears of pain and heartache are pouring down my face, I find my peace in Jesus' name.